Today, we're heading back to the absolutely brutal winter of 1777. But we're going way beyond the textbook facts. We want to know how a defeated, freezing army was literally forged into a real fighting force. And we're going to see this whole thing through the eyes of one soldier who lived it, who endured all of it. His story, well, it begins right where the army's hope nearly died.
You know, when the commander-in-chief shows up and those are his first words, you know you're in trouble. That's General George Washington himself. As his Continental Army basically staggered into their winter camp, there was no big speech, no talk of optimism, just a really grim assessment of a bleak reality that, believe it or not, was about to get a whole lot worse.
So to really get what happened at Valley Forge, we have to see it from the ground. We have to feel the frozen mud. And our guide on this journey is Private Martin Carringer. He's just 18 years old, part of the 8th Pennsylvania Regiment. Now, he's not a general, not some famous name from your history books. He's just one of thousands of exhausted, totally dispirited soldiers arriving at what would become the crucible of the entire American Revolution.
Yeah, this was one soldier's winter. And for Private Carringer and thousands of guys just like him, the hardship didn't start at Valley Forge. They were already carrying it on their backs.
Think about it. They were reeling from these huge defeats at Brandywine and Germantown, so morale was already in the gutter. And now, they're facing this perfect storm of new crises, horrible weather, absolutely no supplies, and a wave of deadly disease. This wasn't a fight against the Redcoats anymore. This was a fight for sheer survival.
Okay, 12 degrees is obviously brutal, but that number doesn't even tell the whole story. It wasn't actually the coldest winter of the war. No, the real misery was the constant cycling, the freeze and thaw, which turned the entire camp into this thick, inescapable swamp of mud. Every single step was a struggle.
That's how General Mad Anthony Wayne, who is in charge of Pennsylvania soldiers like Martin Carringer, put it. The supply crisis was a complete catastrophe. Uniforms were just rags. Shoes, they'd completely fallen apart, forcing men to wrap their feet in cloth, leaving these bloody footprints in the snow. Just an awful, awful reality for the 8th Pennsylvania.
So what were they eating? This. Fire cake. That is, when they weren't going days with nothing at all. Their diet was this miserable, tasteless paste of flour and water. It was just enough calories to keep you from starving, but that's it. It gave you none of the nutrients you needed to fight off sickness or, the biting cold.
So when you combine malnutrition, these crude shelters, and thousands of men packed together in filthy conditions, well, disease becomes your deadliest enemy. Typhus, typhoid, dysentery, you name it, it swept through that camp like wildfire. And get this, even though a mass smallpox inoculation had been ordered the year before, thousands of soldiers had missed it. So they had to do emergency inoculations right there in the middle of this crisis. Just when it seemed like the army had reached its absolute breaking point, a key figure arrives. In late February 1778, this Prussian officer, Baron Friedrich von Steuben, marches into camp. The man was a master of military discipline, and he was about to bring some serious order to the chaos and turn this collection of suffering men into a real army.
Von Steuben's plan was a total overhaul, starting from scratch. He started with the absolute basics, teaching soldiers how to march and maneuver together as one unit. He gave them systematic training on their weapons. And this is so important. He put in strict new sanitation rules. He ordered the latrines to be moved, the huts to be kept clean. He was directly fighting the diseases that were killing more men than any battle.
And the transformation was, well, it was absolute. The army that had just shuffled into Valley Forge as a loose collection of militias was now going to march out as a professional, unified American army. They went from being just a bunch of individual fighters to cohesive units. And they went from living in a filthy, disease-ridden camp to one with actual standards of hygiene. It was a night-and-day difference.
But something else was happening amidst all the drilling and the misery. The shared experience of building shelters together, huddling for warmth, sharing that little bit of fire cake, and taking care of your sick friends, it forged this incredible bond. For Martin Carringer and his squad, that hardship created a level of teamwork and trust that you just can't get from peacetime training. Ever.
All of it, the suffering, the training, that camaraderie, it had this profound impact on every single man who survived. And for Private Martin Carringer, that one winter would become the defining moment of his entire life. I mean, just look at Carringer's journey. He enlists at 18, just a young farm kid from Westmoreland County. He shows up at Valley Forge, totally broken and defeated. By the time he walks out of there at age 20, he's not a recruit anymore. He's a hardened, disciplined, professional soldier, shaped by everything he went through and ready for whatever came next.
And the skills they learned at Valley Forge, they weren't just for the drill field. Right after leaving camp, the 8th Pennsylvania was sent to the brutal Western Department. And all those lessons in survival, in building shelter, and operating as a tight-knit unit, all learned in that crucible, they were immediately put to the test in the harsh realities of frontier warfare.
When you get right down to it, the story of Martin Carringer is really the story of the whole Army. Valley Forge became this core piece of America's identity for a reason. It's the ultimate symbol of perseverance, a story that proves an idea can survive even the most desperate times through sheer endurance and just an unwavering dedication.
So that leaves us with this really powerful question to think about. See, Valley Forge wasn't a battle fought with muskets and cannons. It was a battle against despair itself. And it reminds us that sometimes the most important victories aren't won on the battlefield at all. They're forged in those quiet, desperate moments of shared hardship.